Hello?
Hello?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Curiosity Cove. My name's Veda.
Wait, I'm not there.
You are there.
What happened?
You're there.
Oh, okay, my character's glitched out. I was like, and I'm your trusty cat, maybe?
Did you
I
have
know
to?
I've been gone, I
Did
swear.
Did you have to flip it over at all on Fuji?
No.
No.
That's so weird. I'm offended,
Oh.
but I know Curiosity Cove has been offended that I haven't been here, and I'm so sorry for that. But your trusty captain's back, and you best believe today we'll be talking about
Jennifer Pan. And
let me tell you, this is a
yeah.
fucking story.
Can you give us like a tiny little glimpse as to what this is about?
So this chick, let me tell you, she is no crime mastermind. So when I told all you murder mystery people to get on in here, it's no mystery. She left so many clues, so many issues that came up with just like how she interacted with the authorities in the first place.
Yeah.
Is just being me. But basically, what we're gonna go into is this chick hired hitmen to murder her family and failed at it.
Yeah.
In a 2v4 situation.
This is crazy.
What?
It's
You're out of your
insane.
mind.
But before we get into all that, how are you? How have you been?
Oh my gosh, I've been good. I got back from vacation. That is unfortunately why I did miss last week's podcast. It was lovely. I got my tan on, was out at the beach, we were chilling. And then this whole week I've just been streaming, if you guys were checking it out, Beyond Two Souls, Chef's fucking kiss.
Dude, I love that game.
Banger game.
That is one of my like favorite games in the world.
Really?
I'm
also gonna be picking up your favorite game in the world.
I know, I'm so excited. At that point, so when people are like, "What are the 4 games that defined you?" Mine are always so it's always Diablo, Halo 2, Metro 2033, and Beyond Two Souls.
Ooh.
Sometimes I do Mirror's Edge instead of Beyond Two Souls, but those 2 games were the first like me games, like not me playing with my brother or my family or like getting into things on my own. Those were my first 2, so they're like interchangeable, but like Halo and Diablo for sure are like I have fond memories with my family over them. And then Metro was me, and like obviously it's a single player game, so but me and my brother both played it, so we like kind of like I got introduced to it through him. Beyond Two Souls was mine. My brother never touched the PlayStation. That was my game. And then Beyond Two Souls was for PlayStation, and then I think Mirror's Edge was on Xbox, right? Or was it PlayStation?
I'm not sure. I know we went over briefly when we were doing our like video game episode. Us.
Yeah. Well, whichever one it was, that was like the first like game I ever beat on my own. So yeah, they're interchangeable, but Beyond Two Souls is amazing.
Oh my god, I was crying.
Dude,
I cried 5 times for sure.
Did you know that? So this is funny because so Veda was originally what I wanted to name my daughter, right? And I stole that. So sorry, future daughter. But Aiden is what I wanted to name my son if I ever had one. Yep.
Aww.
Yeah.
I really like the pronunciation of it.
Aiden instead of Aiden.
Enjoy the spelling though.
Oh yeah, I get you.
Because I know too many Aidens spelled like that.
Understandable.
But I do like Aiden. I think it's a very I think it's a pretty name.
Yeah. It is. It's really, that's why I was like, this will be my future child.
This will be in my notes app forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you do that, by the way?
Like put future kid names in my...
Yeah.
No, it's only been the 2 ever.
Really?
Yeah, I was dead set on either one of those.
List. I got 2 lists, and I got a middle name list.
Oh my god,
boy, girl,
my kids,
and non-binary, like in betweens.
My kids in the future will not have middle names.
Really?
No, I think they're dumb. I think they're dumb.
Preach.
I think
that. I just think they're funny for yelling.
Yeah, I guess so. I think the only way that I would put a middle name on my child is if I was like honoring someone. Like if I was like, I'm gonna name you your middle name is going to be your grandma's name or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Or if you had like a family middle name, because I know some people have that, like where it's passed down,
Yeah.
like every woman in the family has this middle name. I think that would be like very honorable, but I also agree that it's kind of like you don't need one
You
kind of
know,
thing.
fun fact, my brother is all last names. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah,
That's
so
funny.
his first name, which is not the name we call him by, um,
Mm.
his first name is my dad on my dad's side. Um, oh shit, my dad's mom's maiden name, and then
Oh.
his middle name is my mom's maiden name, and then his last name is our last name.
Oh,
So
neat.
he's all, yeah, he's like a big homage to the maiden names of the family.
He's a
Yeah.
fan maiden, if you will.
Well, luckily our family had a lot of last names that can be used as first names, so
Yeah. I love that.
yeah. And then my middle name serves no purpose. So all the
I actually
creativity
don't
went to
like
my
my middle
brother.
name either. I'd rather like crumble it up and toss it as well.
That
Or if I get to pick a better one.
I will say it gave me a really good username for a couple of games, but
I love that.
other than that, it serves no purpose.
That's fair.
But yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear that your vacation went well, and I'm
It
sorry
did.
about
It
your
was so
travel
comfy.
back, but
Bro, it fucking sucked.
yeah.
For any of you who don't know, my plane got delayed for like 4 or 5 hours. That shit sucked. I
I
was
think it was
so
like
hungry and angry the
you
whole
were gonna
time.
be. We moved back podcast because you were gonna be here in time for it if
Oh
we
yeah.
moved it back, and then I remember you texted me and said, "Bro, I'm stuck halfway through the flight. Like
Yeah.
we had to land, and we're stuck here." And
Uh-huh.
I remember telling Chalky, because Chalky was gonna be our third. I was
Yeah.
like, we're gonna have to do her part. And
Yeah.
Chalky, the saint that she is, was like, yeah, okay. Sure.
Chalky's so cute.
Dude,
She's so cute.
she's a trooper too. She's like, anytime that we like move the podcast or anytime that I'm like, hey, it's gonna be this, like she's such a trooper. She always makes it there, and she's
Yeah.
like
She's
so
always
on
like,
top. She's
"This
got
is like
great
the one thing I look
research.
forward to every month. I'm just
Yeah,
so excited. It's something I can like
bro,
dedicate towards."
it's
And I was
so
like,
cute.
Chalky, you're so cute. Shut up.
She dropped the bomb that is Shreeman lore on me last time,
I
and
love
I was
that.
going apeshit. Like that episode
Oh,
was
shawarma.
incredible strictly because of her shawarma lore.
I love that.
But yeah, I while you were gone, me and Bebo also did like our, I keep wanting to say, yeah,
Cryptids.
creature feature, but yeah, it's cryptids. And he went over
Yes.
like the lore of Mothman. I went over the Loch Ness monster, which honestly is a crazy story.
I did listen to it. I loved it.
Yeah, it was really fun too to have like, that's something both of us are like super interested in.
Mhm.
And him going over the Mothman lore was fun for me because it was like a refresher from when I visited the Mothman town with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
Ooh.
yeah. Well, moving on. Do you have I know you have a cap word because we've talked about it already, but
I do.
if you want
You guys, let me let you know that number one, we did all this research yesterday.
uh
Number two, these words that we picked for a cap word and word with Vadu, we both hate them,
yeah.
and they're found yesterday during our research. We're like, we need something that's kind of on brand for what we're talking about crime
Came
wise.
across these words and we said, got it.
Barf.
We
Yeah,
scrumped them.
no thanks.
Scrumped them from
we
the research.
scrumped them so fast. I didn't even type mine. You will not hear this word said other than this exact moment right here because I will not be using it. And my cap word of the day is acquitted. I hate that word. It doesn't, what I think, cap definition wise, acquitted means like you acquired the crime you are charged for. Like you are now sent to jail, dunzo, for murder, robbery, arson, blah, blah, blah. Come to find out, acquitted actually means you got away with it. Like you're not charged
You got away
with
with it.
anything. You're not guilty. Like you're innocent
Acquitted
as fuck.
of all
And I'm
charges.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. How does my brain do
Is
that?
it just
How I'm sitting here.
because acquired and accused and like all of those sound alike, and then acquitted sounds like them, but it's not the same? Is that like...
No, majority of like why these are cap words, or like why I can't shake the original definition like that I have,
Mhm.
is as a kid when I would hear these words and I didn't know or did not want to be like, oh, teacher, what is this word?
Mhm.
I would sit there and try to context clues it, but you can't context clues this without the next sentence being, and they got off not guilty, because it's never said like that. It's
Right.
only said they were acquitted of XYZ crimes.
Right.
Moving on. So I would always think, okay, so if this word means like either to have something, because either you have guiltiness or have non-guiltiness, I would always think, okay, so if they're a bad guy, then they have the crimes now
Mhm.
because they did it.
So you took it
And
as
so,
to mean like, oh, they were charged with these crimes.
yeah.
I see.
And I never asked because in my brain I was like, this makes sense. Like, why
Right.
would I, as a kid? So like now it seems a lot of words are a little backfired for me now. I'm working through them. Don't worry, they're not a limit. They're a limit test for me.
Mhm.
But I'm
Do you
working through them
ever
to try and find the correct definitions now.
do you ever say a word and someone's like, that's not what that means?
Yeah.
Oof.
I try not to use those words though.
Yeah.
So then I don't look dumb.
Yeah.
Because if someone says that shit, you better know that I'm turning into tomato, because when I get
So
embarrassed, my cheeks get flushed so red, and it's so embarrassing that I will not use words that I don't know, never heard of, or I've been a lot better of like if someone uses a word I don't know, I like pulled up my hand and I go, "Excuse me, what is that?" Or like I say, "Hold your
yeah.
horses," and I say, "Can you define that real quick?"
Yeah. So my sister, I have what I call Rachel speak for my sister.
Of course.
Because she kind of has a similar thing. I mean, like I guess it depends to what extent.
She's
She
so funny.
says a lot of words that are wrong, but
Like
she
used
just...
wrong?
yeah, so like for instance, she calls the floor the ground and the ground the floor.
Gotcha.
So like when we're outside, she's like, "Stop! That fell on the floor." And then if we're inside, she goes, "I'm gonna put this on the ground. Is that okay?" And like I get that they're somewhat interchangeable, or that like at least ground and
But they're
floor
not ground
inside are.
outside.
And that's what I told her. And so we were like, I just remember being on a trip with her one time, and I was trying to explain it to her, and now I fucking do it. Like she's so committed to it that I've now picked it up. Okay, we're back. Thank you guys so much for holding on. We lost Cap for a second. Um yeah. Discord and Logitech apparently do not get along very well. So I lost Cap in my ears for a second, but we're back. Um so yeah, as I was saying, I've fucking picked up from my sister like this whole like your ground is floor, floor is ground thing. Yeah. So stupid, but no, I get why cap words are cap words. I mean, it makes perfect sense in retrospect. um, the word with Vadu today is very similar. It is the word exonerate, and I hate this word just because exonerate to me doesn't sound like to be. It means to be freed of a charge or free of blame, like one of those two. It just doesn't sound like it, and I just hate like exonerate feels like something bad. So you would think like exonerated like would mean that they were exiled or like outcasted or something, but no, it means that they're free. So I don't like it. And it comes from... yeah, it comes from like the Latin roots of like ex, which means from, and owner, which means like a burden. So it's like to like coming from a burden. So it makes sense like etymology wise. I hate it. I think it's dumb. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Literally, both of them were like, yes, correct. So if you guys remember from last time that we did one of these, Cap kind of got into the early life, kind of like showed us who the person was before everything, and then I took it over and kind of showed who he was when he started committing the crimes. We're reversing it today. Yeah. So I've got the early life, and whew, let me tell you, there is a lot that goes on early in her life that you're like, the fuck? But honestly, more than anything, I want to like, I would, if I was her parents' friend during this time, I would be like, are you dumb? Do you not see all this? But so starting off, Jennifer Pan's parents, named Bikha and Huihan Pan, they were refugees of Chinese descent from Vietnam, and they had both fled to Canada. So Huihan was born in Vietnam, and he grew up there, got educated there, and then he fled to Canada in 1979. This is where he met her mother, Bikha, who had basically they had met through being like they had bonded through being like both being refugees who fled to Canada. So they got hitched in Toronto and then moved to another town named Scarborough. They then had Jennifer in 1986 and her younger brother Felix in 1989. They went to work for the same company, which was called Magna International in Aurora. I believe all of this is outside of Toronto, but I'm not from Canada, so you're gonna have to fact. Yeah, they're like right on the outside of what's considered the Greater Toronto area. So it's kind of like if you go to a major city and you fall outside of city limits, like think of that as being like where they were. So like everything takes place pretty much right in Toronto. So yes, they both got jobs at Magna International. Basically, Bikha was making car parts and Huihan was working as a tool and die maker. So they didn't do the exact same job, but they both worked there and they made a pretty good living doing so. So in 2004, the entire family moved to a house with a 2-car garage in a town called Markham, which is in the Greater Toronto area. And it's actually a town that's known to have a pretty large Asian population. So they were kind of like closer to their roots by moving there. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. They weren't what I would call great parents. They were super oppressive, right? Jennifer was enrolled in music theory and harmony lessons at 12. And then they also enrolled her in lessons for figure skating. And so all of her free time at the age of 12, which is a huge developmental period, was spent doing learning outside of learning at school. So, and they were helicopter parents about this too. They took her everywhere. They monitored her. Like, she wasn't allowed a really large social life. Anything that would interfere with her academics was like a big no-no all through her life. And that started very, very young because she was put into all these lessons at 12 and then she was just expected to maintain them for like her whole schooling career. Yeah, exactly. So they had super high expectations. That continued into high school. She enrolled in band and played the flute at her high school. Her parents were constantly picking her up every day, closely monitoring any extracurriculars or after school things that she was doing. She was told no time for friends, no time for dating. Socializing was like okay, but really what it came down to was as little time spent on distractions as she could. Like, that was their big rule. So as far as her parents knew, at 22, Jennifer never went to a club, had never drank, had never visited a friend's place, or even gone on vacation without her family. She was she was locked in this like prison of, get good grades and focus on that and nothing else. Like, she wasn't allowed a life. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she was basically told at 12, like, this is how the world works. You're going to get these responsibilities. You're going to keep up with these responsibilities. Say goodbye to any social life that you wish you had, because that's not what life is about. And that's really the philosophy that they taught her. And so throughout all of her schooling, they only wanted one thing from her, which was good academic reflection. And she could not do that. She got C's in a lot of her classes. And from a very young age, she started to fake her report cards and forge them to display straight A's in order to deceive her parents so that she could like fly under the radar and not get any backlash or anything. Then moving on to high school, she actually failed calculus and was not one. She wasn't allowed to move on to the next grade without passing calculus, so she would have had to have gone to summer school. And she had early admission granted from Ryerson University, which is now Toronto Metropolitan University? Metropolitan? Um, I think Metropolis. And that's not what I should be thinking. But anyways, but yeah, they rescinded her early admission because she had failed calculus, and they were like, no, you have to pass calculus to come here. So she wasn't allowed to go to college, and she would have to repeat a class in order to move on to the next year of high school. So instead, she dropped out and lied to her parents and said, yeah, I'm going to college. What do you mean? Yes. She never finished high school. She told her parents that she was attending Ryerson, and in order to maintain these lies, she would say things like, oh my god, yeah, I got a scholarship and I've been invited to this pharmacology program at the University of Toronto, and blah blah. And they would be handing her checks for like for tuition, for textbooks, for whatever else. And then what she would really be doing is she would be going to like cafes. She picked up a job at a restaurant. She was teaching piano on the side to like make money. And her parents at all this time believed that she was in college. And I mean, we're talking like years, right? Because if she was born in 1986, that means she graduated in plus 18 would be 2004, and she like was in quote unquote in college and like lying to her parents for like years. And then long story short, the it kind of all led up to like her needing to maintain this web of lies. So she would buy these secondhand textbooks of like pharmacology, and she would like look up videos of like educational videos of pharmacology material and fill notebooks to make it like appear like she was studying or that she was in class taking notes or doing whatever, and she would show these to her parents. So she was, oh my god, literally, if they believed that you were going to college and they were handing you the money, why are you overdoing it? Like, fly under the radar, and unless they ask for something, you don't have to do it. But I think I think that she, because her household was so pressuring, I think she grew up very anxious. And I think her anxiety turned to paranoia. And so she thought that she was ahead of them because her paranoia brought her into these, like, all these different scenarios where, like, well, what if I need this? What if I need this? What if I need this? And so she was just, like, finding ways to cover her ass in case they asked anything. And then she was, yeah, I think her paranoia and anxiety just got to her and forced her into doing all of this extra work to maintain this lie. Because even when you watch her interviews with the police, you can see she's a very anxious person. I mean, granted, she has good reason to be, but like, she's very, very anxious. So I think that started very young. And she like, I mean, she lied all to her parents all the way through this, supposed college. And like, all that I can imagine is like Ryerson University, she had to at least have attended for a fake, half a semester, right? And then she had to have then said, I've been invited to the pharmacology, which means she would have had to have finished like a year at, Ryerson. And then she would go into this pharmacology thing, and then she had to have at least been there for, I mean, like maybe one supposed semester, because eventually she convinced her parents to give her permission to stay closer to campus when like when she met a friend, quote unquote. And she essentially was like, listen, camp, like the University of Toronto is like a little far. I have a friend who stays close to campus. Like, I would really like to stay there during the week just so I can be closer to my classes, have more time to like focus and you know, get back and study and whatnot. And her parents were like, yeah, that sounds responsible and fine, so go ahead. But this friend of hers was her like high school boyfriend that she had been discreetly dating. And so his, like, I mean, since high school at least, so we're talking at this point, they've been together at least like 2 years. Try speaking now, would you, Captain?
Hello.
Oh,
We're back with
back,
Curiosity
you're
Cove.
back, you're back. Hallelujah.
And
Guys,
we're back.
in case you were wondering, she was agreeing with me on everything.
I was.
Yeah.
I was literally just saying that this chick is very dedicated to her web of lies, but also, damn, she did this for so long. I would have never.
Yeah. Like, I just can't imagine, like, getting to the point where it's like, because you're right. Like, at first, they probably could have gotten away with it because it was like, you can pass them off as like, oh, that's my classmate. Like, oh, you know, we were studying. Like, oh, we're out with a group of friends, you know, whatever it might be. But eventually, spending so much time around the same boy, like, you're restrictive parents and you don't think anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I just can't believe she got away with all like the parent-teacher conferences too.
yeah,
You know,
for real, absolutely.
like how.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so she ends up being able to stay closer to campus, and by that I mean stay with her high school boyfriend.
Of course.
And his name was Daniel Wong. I'm not going to say his full name because I'll butcher it. But Daniel Wong, and he lived in a place called Ajax, and he was a pizza store manager, and he dealt pot. So
I love that. Side gig.
Her standards were very high. So while she was pretending to attend Toronto University, she told her parents that she had actually started volunteer work at a hospital helping out with sick kids. Like, the most cliche line in the book. Like, yeah, I started working at a hospital for sick kids.
Yeah.
And
some charity work, you know.
I'm volunteering, and yeah, that's what I'm doing in my free time. So you can give me more free time to do that now. I can leave the house now. And this is where she got caught, because her mother thought that it was very, very strange that she did not have scrubs or an ID badge or anything of that sort. So she decided one day when Pan was like, hey, I'm heading off to the hospital for sick kids where I totally volunteer. She decided to follow her. And naturally, when she followed her, she did not see a hospital for sick kids, but instead saw her going. It was either to her piano lessons that she had been like teaching, or they saw her going to socialize. And so her parents were livid because she had been lying to them all this time. And I think this was at the point that I found out that she had been lying to them for like years. Like, it wasn't just like half a semester, like 6 months went by and they were buying the lies, because they had given her multiple tuition checks. Yeah. And so they demanded her to give the money back. They basically put her on lockdown. Huihan actually threatened to throw her out of the house, but Big Ha was like, no, let her stay, and we can put her through the rest of high school, because she never fucking finished high school. And that's what they did. She stayed in the house. She was not allowed to be in contact with Daniel. She wasn't allowed to really go anywhere except for to teach her piano lessons, because she was allowed to keep that job. But they were like, I mean, they were hawk's eyes on her, and they basically told her that she had to finish high school. Once she did, they encouraged her to actually attend university. And all this time, the reason that they didn't want her in contact with Wong wasn't even because they thought he was a bad influence. It was because his ethnic background was different than theirs.
It wasn't because he was a drug dealer?
It wasn't because he was a drug dealer or because they thought he was a lowlife. They were like, that boy is Filipino and Chinese mixed race. We don't want you with him. That's literally what they told her.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, your daughter's like lying out the ass, manipulating, coming up with these crazy things. She's basically stolen money from you. Like, she's
thousands of dollars.
Yeah, she's broken all of your rules. You don't even know half the shit she's lied about, I'm sure. And you're worried about her boyfriend not being fully Chinese. Like, what? That's wild to me.
It is.
But yeah, they remained in contact because why wouldn't they?
Preach.
You tell a teenager no or a young adult no, and they're absolutely going to go against what you say.
Oh yeah.
So she remained in contact with Wong, and by 2009, he had actually grown super sick of her bullshit. Because if you think about it, at that point, they had been together for 5 or 6 years. But they couldn't do anything together because of all of her parents' restrictions. Yeah. So he was like, fuck this, I'm out. I'm sick of the secrecy. I'm sick of having to sneak around or only getting to talk or whatever else. So he broke up with her and he actually ended up dating another girl. This is where you start to see like the tendencies that Jennifer Pan had come out, because apparently what happened was the new girlfriend Jennifer learned like all of this shit about, and she concocted this really fucked up story about, she said that a man had knocked on the door of her house when she was home alone, right? And he had a badge and he was dressed like a police officer ordering her to open the door. And she twisted some story about how she thought it might be about him because he deals drugs. And that she opened the door and then several other men rushed in behind this man dressed as a cop, that they all sexually assaulted her.
Oh my god.
And then that they just left. And she then basically added on to it that a bullet, like one stray bullet, was mailed to her shortly after. When she told Daniel this story, she was trying to imply that the events were no coincidence, that they were orchestrated by his new girlfriend.
That's insane. Like, he could just ask her, like, bro, did you do this?
Yeah. Like,
you'd have no idea.
Literally. Evidently what happened after that was he believed her or he didn't, and they fought about it or whatever, and he ended up right back with her anyway. So they continued to be on again, off again. And later on in the spring of 2010, so the spring of the following year, she was in contact with a friend from high school named Andrew Montmayor, and she claimed that he had boasted about the way that he was able to rob people at knife point and how many like things that he had acquired by robbing people. And then Andrew introduced her to a quote-unquote goth kid by the name of Ricardo Duncan, who she allegedly handed $1,500 in exchange for a promise for him to kill her father in the parking lot of Magna, the place where he worked. And
oh my god,
it's crazy because when these two were spoken to about this, because obviously they had to be investigated, Andrew Montmayor was like, I never robbed anybody. I don't know where she's coming up with this. And then Ricardo Duncan was like, no, dude, she gave me a couple $100 and I returned it. She never mentioned anything about killing her dad. I never actually took any money from her. So there was there was like very conflicting stuff from very early on in the spring of 2010. And regardless of all the claims, she would find another means of freeing herself from her lifelong restriction, which brings us to Cap's side of it.
Dude, I didn't even know about those other two dudes that she just ran. She has to be a like a what's it called?
Pathological liar.
Yeah.
100%.
There's no way. Like,
She,
what did she get out of lying about those two dudes, though?
yeah, well, and that's the thing is like, I mean, granted, we weren't there, so we don't know that she's technically lying.
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't be shocked if it was more so of a thing of like, she, like, for the first guy, she might have been making shit up. Like, he might have mentioned that, you know, he had a knife and she might have concocted the story or something. Maybe he did actually hold people at knife point and he's just denying it because he doesn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, like they could be lying back.
Right. The
Yeah.
second guy though, like, dude, you told the police that you gave a guy $1,500 to kill your dad.
Yeah,
What?
I don't know, man. She's not making sense to me.
I would be so inclined to believe that she lied about both of them. Just like knowing everything about her. I doubt that either of them were actually true. And
Nah.
if they were even a little true, I'm sure it's not to the caliber at which she's saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, that brings us to why we're covering this chick in the first place. It wasn't because of all that. That is all bad. Yes. But here's the crime. In January of 2015, she was 28 years old and was sentenced to life in prison for hiring hitmen, 3 of them total, to just kill her parents. One night, she was just like, "Hey, yeah, I need this done." So, to go and break down how we got to 2015 and where this all happened, first off, the actual crime takes place on November 8th of 2010. There was a 911 call that was made out from a family home in somewhere around Ontario, Canada. Didn't say anywhere specific, but I would assume it's in the same house that she moved, where we said in her earlier life, where she was
Markham.
still quote unquote, yeah, Markham, quote unquote, attending college. So somewhere around there, because she didn't ever move out of her family's house, so that's where this takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the caller was from the Jennifer Pan. So she was like calling, she's like, "Oh my god, there's armed gunmen. They forced their way into my house and they're demanding money. I don't really know what's going on. I'm like, my dad's hurt. I don't know where my mom is." And she's sounding very panicked. And the 911 dispatcher's like, "Oh my god, do you know, like, where are you? What's happening? Who's in the house? Like, do you know what is actually happening? Where are you? Are you safe?" So apparently, she was giving very roundabout answers to things. She didn't really give them straight answers as to like what actually was happening, so we would assume that she was a disconnect to what was happening and it was more so for the parents. But what had happened was her father, Huihan, had survived a shooting and needed urgent medical care for the wounds that he sustained. Unfortunately, her mother, Bekhan, died instantly from the wounds, and I will go deeper into detail what happened that night specifically. Um so what had happened was Jennifer Pan was pissed about her parents being like, "Don't do that, don't do this, you can't meet him, you can't go hang out with her, you're literally lying about your college education, this is ridiculous." So she basically bottled all that frustration and pain up, and after lying for a total of about 7 years or so, this also includes lying about like hanging out with Daniel Wong as well. She also knew that he had a criminal record. They never go into detail about what, I mean, obviously he's a drug dealer, so we can mark that on the list, but there he had a past criminal record as well. So he would already have been on the watch for authorities in the area. But she basically asked him to help organize a plot to murder her parents along with some of the hitmen. They go by the names of, sorry if I butcher any of these, I'm so sorry. David Milvagnam and Lenford, quote unquote, homeboy Crawford and Eric Carty. So the original idea was to stage this murder to look kind of like a robbery that went wrong, and then that's why like someone would have gotten hurt, but it was the original intent to steal things, money, valuables from the house. And they would leave Jennifer as a quote unquote helpless witness.
You know what's
And
wild to me
it was
about all of
horrible.
this?
What?
Her boyfriend said, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
That
By the way, he wasn't involved with this at all.
baffles me. Yeah, no, he's like, so have you watched like the interviews or watched anything like about like either the interviews or watched like the news reports or heard the 911 call? Like, have you seen any of that?
I saw the coverage that they lightly did on one of the news channels, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get to check out any of the interviews. I know there's a documentary if anyone is interested
It's on
on
Netflix
Netflix if you
called
want to go check
What
that out.
Jennifer Did, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I watched that with Tyga before
Yeah.
this to so I could just like get any of maybe like last details that I didn't know about like her early life or anything.
Yeah.
And watching the interviews, like watching her specifically in the interviews is fascinating because they basically are able to tell everything that happened just from the way she acts and talks. It's
Really?
crazy. Yeah, it's insane. They Milvagnum and Crawford and Cardi were like they had she gave them no information on anything. Even when they had cracked it, she gave them no information. And so to see them come to her with everything and her like mentality and the way she just denies it's insane. Like she puts the waterworks on and everything. She's so manipulative. It's actually crazy.
Wait, so the three hitmen gave up like
No, they
it
were
all?
found.
Oh.
Like, so she didn't give them any information on the hitman
Oh.
until they already knew.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
This she's fascinating, that's for sure. I'll
Yeah,
give you that.
she's out of all
She's
of the
something.
crimes committed, this was definitely one of them.
Well, to go in what a play-by-play happened that night and how it all went down was Jennifer was like hanging out with her parents somewhere in like the living room of sorts. And she gets up and goes, "All right, mom and dad, I'm going to be heading to bed." And they're like, "All right, honey, see ya, bye." She goes upstairs. But before she heads upstairs, she somehow goes over to the front door and unlocks it and just goes upstairs. Whether or not, like, obviously, depending on how that house is laid out, they would have just not checked it before they went to bed is
Hmm.
beyond me. But basically, she unlocks the door so there's no evidence of forced entry, goes
Right.
upstairs, and puts her little ass to bed. And the parents, of course, at some point go up as well. They turn in for the night. And this is when the three hitmen enter the house through the front door, mind you, not back door, just the front. They went upstairs, woke the parents up from their sleep, placed blankets over their head to, like, of course, just try and hide who they were from them. I don't know why this would matter if they're trying to kill them, but beyond me. Um, and then they allegedly tied Jennifer to the banister, and this was done by Eric Carty with just a shoelace. They didn't bring rope to show like that is where she actually was held, and that I think would show evidence of like rope burn, trying to like get
Hmm.
out a way to try and save, oh my god, my mom and dad. No, shoelace. Don't know if it was one of their shoes either.
That's
But
crazy.
yeah, they grab the parents and they head downstairs and they took off the blankets and they started like demanding money and like stuff from them, waving the guns in their face like, "You guys need to do this right now. Like, this is ridiculous. Give us your money." And to which they didn't even wait for them to do anything. They just straight up shot VedaCain twice in the head at point blank range, so she's
Oh
done.
God.
They turned to Huihan and shot him once in the face and once in the shoulder. I'm assuming because he would have fell down at some point
Hmm.
from the first shots. That's where the second one went. And instead of thinking, you know what, he looked like he could possibly survive, They didn't check. So Big Khan, obviously, she's not moving. Blood is swelling around her. Hui Han managed to go upstairs from the basement, and he lost consciousness on the like staircase, kind of, in
Mm-hmm.
a way. So instead of them checking on him and making sure like he was dead, they went somewhere else. I'm assuming to go talk to Jennifer.
No fucking way.
Yeah, they went upstairs. So if we're assuming a split level of sorts, or obviously two separate staircases, he's passed out on the one heading downstairs. But Jennifer was tied to the banister of the upstairs staircase. So I'm assuming the three hitmen went upstairs, went to go corroborate a story of sorts, to which Hui Han gets up after losing consciousness from his blood loss, I'm assuming, gets up, goes out the back door, runs down kind of the some design of a neighborhood. I'm not sure if it's like just straight away or he hopped a fence of sorts, but he makes it to the neighbor's house. To which he like is slurring his words and he's trying to get their attention. Yo, call the police, all this stuff. Passes out. And so Jennifer, in this time that he makes it away, she gets the phone. She's tied up, remember? She gets the phone, picks up, and goes 911. Someone broke in. I heard gunshots. I don't really know what's happening. I'm tied up upstairs. I think my dad went outside. He's screaming. No other definition of like, you just said you're tied up. Why are you on the phone? How are you on the phone?
Right.
And that when the police actually got there, of course, hitmen are gone. Like they quote unquote escaped. And when the police were doing like a search of the premises to make sure that like A, no one was still in the house, and B, to check on any of the bodies there, they noticed A, that Hui Han was not there. And they went to go check that place as well because he needed medical emergency care. But there was nothing stolen from in the house.
Like no
The TV was
valuables.
there. Yep, the TV was there. No money was taken. No wallets were broken into. No safe was opened. There
Dude.
was, if any, like vases or like fine jewelry was around, they're all in their natural spots. Not even moved. Not even an inch. Just
Dude,
left
what?
completely alone. Uh huh. I don't know. She made up this story and shit. So moving on. This is leading up to the court case now. So this is them gathering all their information before they go ahead and they're like, yeah, Jennifer, you did this. Like this kind of obvious. So Hui Huan was medically evac to a hospital as soon as possible. There, he was placed in a medically induced coma. This, obviously, as I said, he was shot in the face.
Yeah.
So they needed him, like, to be under, not having his body under any stress. So he manages to survive this attack. So he didn't actually die at the hospital. It took him about a week to become, quote unquote, stable enough for questioning, which I think is insane, if we could put a pin in that. Whenever they're talking about, like, talking to injured witnesses or injured victims,
Mm.
the police are like shoving microphones down their throat when they just come out of a coma. I think that's insane.
Dude,
Like, give me a second.
have you ever seen like an interview where they do that shit too? Because it's not like they don't do it
Yes.
with any sort of sensitivity. They come in and they go, "Hope you're feeling better. Can you tell us where you were on the night?" Like, what the?
Yeah.
Give
So, like,
the
by the
man
way,
a
your
fucking
mom and
second.
dad died. Can we talk about that? And I'm like,
Literally.
what if they didn't know?
But not only that, but like, this is a very traumatic thing. You don't want to give them like
It is.
maybe an extra couple days. Like,
No.
they're fresh out of a coma. You don't want to give them maybe 48 hours to like.
No, this literally said it took a week for him to come to, and they're in the room.
That's wild.
So they blow him up with a bunch of questions. Where is your daughter? What happened? Do you remember what happened on this night? Do you know who the hitmen were? Did you know that your wife is dead? And he's probably laying there like, I witnessed most of it. So yeah. But also he said he witnessed Jennifer. I'm assuming this is when he regained somewhat consciousness on the staircase. Or when he was being moved to the basement. He literally witnessed Jennifer talking to one of the hitmen as if she knew them. He overheard a
No
conversation
way.
and literally said, if I like could look at a lineup of who we think these men are, I could point one out and be like, Jennifer was talking to him.
Oh my god. Wait.
Yeah, so
Dude, she's so messy. The fuck?
I know, it's horrible. So obviously they get the whole story from him, and then they obviously still had Jennifer in holding somewhere, and we're like, Jennifer, we need you to answer these questions. Your father came too, and like we need to make sure like everything's okay. We need to hear your side of the story. She did a complete 180. The story that she told compared to her father's was drastically different.
Oh.
There was very little story plot points that are adding up.
Yeah.
And she was basically lying through her teeth to the police.
Oh my god.
So the police said F that, and they dug into her old phone records, including some messages that she found between they pinned Daniel Wong here at this point because they obviously that's where she got the hitman from.
Right.
So they linked him there, but also she was texting the co-conspirators, the literal hitmen, on her phone.
You know what's crazy to me?
What?
So in the documentary, they mentioned that Wong had actually gotten her a different phone and a different SIM card to use so that she wouldn't have to use her actual phone. She just said, fuck that.
Yeah, they never talked about having a separate phone or anything.
Which means that she just didn't use it.
Yeah, I would assume maybe she used it for phone calls, but why would you
use your real phone for anything?
Yeah. So they literally found, or my other side of the story is they found that burner phone.
Oh, yeah, maybe it was in her possession because she was talking to...
She could have also made the 911 call off the burner.
Oh, if she was that dumb.
That's what I'm saying.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, that's why I'm not shocked either. But they literally found in old phone records, so I'm assuming it's not the burner because they found it in like a separate phone. Right. Where she talked to all four of them.
Right. Well,
yeah.
I know the way they showed some of the text messages in the documentary, and it was like she, because they called, is it Crawford, is homeboy, right?
Yeah.
So she was like texting Daniel, and he was like, she was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and he's like, I thought you said you wanted this. I thought you said you wanted it for you.
Yeah.
And she, like, he got mad at her and then sent the contact information for homeboy, and she's like, cool, I'm setting it up with him. And so I'm like, bro, you were 2 seconds away from not being in prison the rest of your life. That's crazy. You had the mental, like, the cognitive sense to say yeah, this is stupid. Yeah. And then you just did it, and your boyfriend got upset, so you decided to kill your parents?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, she also confessed to that.
Yeah.
She confessed to the murder itself and that she staged the whole attack. She admitted that the plan was to offer Crawford $10,000, but it was also, it was for him to kill her directly, not her parents. The parents were never involved. And that was strictly so that her younger brother, Felix, I believe his name was, could get her insurance policy. So I don't understand why she said that lie, because she was uninjured the entire time. Besides, of course, if she got a little boo-boo from the shoelaces.
Yeah.
But basically she told them that she hired the hitman to come kill her instead. But they decided, well, if they're going to make that statement, let's look into the insurance policies. So they did. And they found out that if Jennifer switched the story and actually admitted that it was to have her parents killed, she stood to inherit $500,000, which would give her the motive to follow through with this. But also, it was literally on top of it to have the motive to go and be with her boyfriend again, because they found out that her parents forbade that.
Right.
So it's a double motive. Money and happiness with her lover.
Dude.
But $500,000.
That's wild.
Insane.
So when you're stick a pin in what I'm about to say, but when you're through everything,
Yeah.
I want to mention something really cool that I figured out. Uh, because in when I was watching the documentary, I
Mhm.
recognized what they were doing with the way that they did the investigation, and I know all
Mhm.
about it, and I want to share it because it's really cool. So
Oh, bet,
stick
bet,
a pin
bet.
in that, and then we'll come back to it.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go through the sentencing, and then also there is some new news as of May 2023
Oh, wait.
about it all.
Holy shit, that's recent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the overall sentencing that was broken down after they went through the whole court hearing and everything. Huihan, her dad, literally testified for the prosecution at Jennifer's 2014 murder trial, excuse me, to which Jennifer was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years.
Oh,
This
okay.
same sentence was given to Daniel Wong, David Milav,
Malvignam or
there
whatever.
you go. And Lenford Crawford. They're all given the same sentence as Jennifer. But in the case of Eric Carty, they considered it a mistrial,
Oh,
and later, like, it was just put later because I guess the one that happened at 2014, something went wrong and they couldn't actually try him. They pushed it later to December 2015, where he received an 18-year sentence after pleading guilty to the whole sorts, and he was eligible for parole after 9 years. 3 years later, in 2018, he actually died in jail. But completely unrelated to this whole murder right now, he was also convicted of a separate 2009 murder where he was actually found not guilty of two separate shootings. So they actually had like a hitman who had prior um criminal records, and they actually didn't know about that, but he also got away with it. So they couldn't really like say he had a criminal record because he got slid on by that dumb word where we would not be saying. But anyways, so he unfortunately passed away, and then as of
unfortunately.
May, yeah, yeah. I mean, he still died, so like sad, but like
But they couldn't
he's literally
incarcerate him
dumb.
forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like, damn, wasn't a fur lifer, I guess.
That's I like that it's like, yeah, he was gonna get sentenced with a lot more, but he
You know,
died.
yeah. It's like the pause that he died.
Yeah.
Ooh. But last year in May of 2023, an Ontario High Court ordered a retrial for Jennifer on the grounds that the judge in the original trial quote unquote deprived the jury by not presenting all possible theories outside a home invasion that had gone awry and a quote unquote murder for hire. So, other options that could have been put on the table were possible second degree murder and manslaughter. So, apparently, this high court judge was like, nah, I think this trial was like done wrong. So, I kind of
Wow.
want to do a recount, and yeah, I would like to do that. And
Well,
so
because
there's no
that's
trial yet,
if
but
she gets this retrial, they'll probably get her for either manslaughter or second degree murder though, because it usually murder for hire falls under one of those, like
yeah,
if depending on the involvement or whatever. And I mean, that could severely lessen her sentence.
that's what I'm saying.
That's fucked.
That means some fucking judge who was just sniffing about looked at this court case and was like, this looks a little weird. Let's redo it. Why?
I feel
She's
like
in there for life, granted, with a
what
possible parole of 25 after 25 years,
that's
but this was
crazy.
only what 10 years later ish.
Yeah.
What the
Well, if she was sentenced in 2014,
14? Yeah.
that means it would be 2039 before she could get out.
For
If
parole,
if
yeah.
she gets it, because it's only a possibility.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so there's no talk of the possible scheduled court date yet, but it was stated in 2023 that they were going to be re-looking into the trial itself judging if it's even worthy of doing a retrial, and then they would of course announce what will happen afterwards.
That's crazy that they want to do another trial.
This chick literally said, "Hey, I did it." What the
Yeah, like you already have her confession, you have the full story. Can you not just are they not allowed to just change the I guess they have to do a retrial to change the judging on it, huh?
Yeah. I think they'd have to do that to change the judging itself, but there's still nothing greater or a higher level of factual evidence than the murderer saying, "I did it, here is how."
Yeah.
Like,
Because I mean, conspiring to murder and carrying out like a murder for hire and all that stuff. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know Ontario's laws because I don't know Canadian law at all.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine it's much different than here where it's like, yeah, that's murder.
Yeah.
Like I don't I mean I guess the difference would be the physical act of it, but like you may as well.
Yeah.
You paid someone to be your hand on the trigger instead.
Mhm. And it's also still premeditated because you told them, "Hey, can you do
100%,
this?"
yeah.
Like, what?
Exactly. So that's crazy to me that they would even consider doing a retrial on that. But holy shit.
Yeah. I don't know. She she got me messed up. Look, like, diving into the evidence of all this
It was
stuff
crazy.
killed me.
It
Like,
was
me and
crazy.
Veda were just laughing the
Yeah.
entire time.
Because we were sitting there like, how the fuck do you how does any of this happen? Like how do you get
I
away with this? How like what?
I don't
I
know.
can't I still can't believe they didn't even catch that she was faking her. Do you think before all of this came out that they knew that she was faking her report cards? Like, do you think when like the big lie came out, like when they were like, "You're not going to," she was also like, "Yeah, and you know what? I faked all of my report cards."
You
Because
know
like,
what? I would hope she went out with a bang.
me too. I would hope if all the lies were coming forward, I hope that she just wiped all of them clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, "Yeah, and I didn't do those report cards, and I didn't
And
go
I
to school,
failed
and I stole
calculus.
your money."
Yeah.
Like, all of that,
Yeah.
just let her rip, girl. Like,
I hope so. Um.
yeah.
All right. Any last notes, or is the news the last of it?
That was it. That was the
Okay.
newest thing that I heard about it. And then obviously we found out about the documentary. And that was the final sentencing that has been like stuck to
Oh
until like
yeah.
this new trial happens.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, let me share with you a really interesting thing about the investigation process that I learned.
Yes, please.
There is this thing that I for some odd reason know a lot about. I think just because I've heard it used so many times in like true crime documentaries, or like they use it in crime shows like Criminal Minds or something. Like those
Hmm.
types of shows, they'll talk about it, but it's actually called the Reed technique. Have you ever heard of this?
I have not.
Okay. So the basis of it is there was a guy named Johnny Reed. He was a polygraph detector guy,
Hmm.
like one of the ones that does the test.
Yeah.
And he basically developed this method of interrogation that he called the Reed technique. It is very effective, but it's very controversial as well. And basically like the way that it works is it's this approach that looks at three major things. It's like factual information, a behavior analysis, and then an actual interrogation, right? So
Hmm.
I watched them do the first two parts in the documentary and I was like, are they using the fucking Reed technique? Do I know what this is right now? And
Yeah.
then we got to the later part that I'll get into, and I was like, oh my god, it's the fucking Reed technique. Um, so the first thing that they did was they got a factual analysis from everybody who was essentially like involved, anybody that they were questioning or whatever. They just basically tried to get them to like write down as much information. They gathered as much information on the suspects as they
Hmm.
could. They gathered as much information on the interviewer or the interviewees, and essentially by looking at all of these facts, they can kind of like make decisions about where they're going to take the interrogation of
Hmm.
anybody who's involved. Next up is the behavior analysis. So what they essentially do is they ask like provoking questions to elicit like certain behaviors, and
Mm-hmm.
they study these behaviors on whether or not the person is telling the truth, if they're hiding something, if they're blatantly lying, anything like that. And then from there they kind of like overall decide how they're going to um approach it. Once they've figured out like, okay, this is our suspect that they believe is guilty, they kind of go through like an accusatory process rather than like a traditional one, so be said.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole bunch of different ways that they do it, but in this one, much like in many of them, they use manipulation and coercion. So
Oh.
basically, what they did was they brought her in and they said, okay, give us as much information as you can on, the shooters, give us information on, how you made the call, da 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 da. And they were looking at the interesting things here, and they were like, okay, well, so according to your story, like they came in, you heard popping noises, you weren't sure what was going on, your dad was screaming, they tied you to a banister, you were able to dial 911, you were yelling into the phone, da da da. And so she like confirmed all of it, and they said, okay, the behavior analysis part, what they did to figure out her behavior and decipher whether or not they thought that she was a suspect or that she was lying or guilty or anything, was they asked her to demonstrate how she dialed 911.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, okay, go ahead and like stand up, turn around, face the wall, put your hands behind your back. Okay, you're restrained like this. Where are you tied to the banister? And she's like, okay, up here. And she like points to her upper arm. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
they tied me to the banister here. And then my hands were bound here. And they're like, okay, put the phone where you think it was on you. And so she slides it into the waistband of her pants.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, okay, and now demonstrate how you made the call. And so she basically like twist her hands enough to get the phone out of her waistband. And they go, okay, and then how did you make the call? And she like twists them again to bring it to her side just enough so that she could see it. And they go, okay, and then that's how you were on the phone. You were yelling down into the phone. She said, yeah, the phone was right here and I was yelling into it. And then they're like, okay, absolutely. And then they started asking her questions like, why weren't any valuables stolen? Why did they leave? Why didn't they shoot you like they shot your parents? And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, the only thing that I can think of is that I, like, I worked with them. I cooperated. And
Yeah.
then they left her and they observed her, and she stood up and she was pacing around. She was constantly like grooming her hair. She was touching her stomach a lot. And those things told them she's not telling us the whole story. So
What the
then,
hell?
once they basically used these methods to put together that she had probably done it, along with
Yeah.
outside information, they went through her phone, XYZ. Once they figured it out, they basically told her stuff like, we've seen the text messages, we know, XYZ, ABCD, whatever. We have infrared technology that can see the movements within houses. We
Mm-hmm.
have satellites that can track your phone and look at things and blah blah. So they basically lied to her, and they were like, "We already have all this, so you might as well." And so she cracked, and she told them everything.
I think that's one of my favorite things that authorities do is that they make this straight up lie that makes the person who might have done it panic and think like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, they know everything, and then just
Mm-hmm.
throw up all the lies or like now the truth to them. But the police didn't even have anything.
Yeah, it's
I love it so
I love
much.
those moments. Like
It's a good lie.
there was a case which we should cover sometime.
Oh.
So I'll have to track it down. But there was a case that I looked at where it was a whole I'll just say this because then we can cover it and it's not giving too much away. There was a whole group of kids involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in order to figure out which one had done something, they put them all in separate rooms and lied to them about what each other were saying. So they were like, they would come in and say, well, Brad is saying that you did it. And then
Yeah.
so it baits the person going, I didn't do shit, Brad did shit. It gets them to turn on each other, and I think it's so interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love when they just lie to the victims or like the bad guys.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, your partner said this. And then they're like, they just word vomit everything.
And
I
like
love it.
the read technique is like very controversial for these reasons, because like it's psychologically pressuring, and like one of the big concerns about it is like there's a huge potential for false confessions, especially if you're looking at somebody who's like super vulnerable, like people who are mentally ill or who are on the younger side, people who are maybe like stunted in development in their brains, they're more susceptible to being manipulated and being like forced into falsely confessing. So they, because of the limited understanding of their rights in the legal process, a lot of people fear that using a tactic such as this would essentially like cause a lot of fake confessions.
Have them believe that they actually did it.
And it's crazy though, because like they like the behavioral analysis thing is the way that some of these people do it is incredible, because like they will have somebody come in really soft and like kind to talk to them and be like, oh, you know, do you need a break? Do you need some water? Here, I brought you this. Everything's going to be okay. Are you doing all right? And they can watch back this video and see how this person is reacting to this kindness to see if they're giving off tells of like, oh, this is somebody who's lying or this is someone who's telling the truth. So they did that to Jennifer Pan, and she was like, this lady came in and she's like, you know, I've got water, and she's like obsessively stroking her hand. She's like, I'm just like, I don't want to say anything wrong, like, you know, there's bits and pieces everywhere and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, well, the, you know, the bits and pieces, they're gonna come together, and what you're saying is the truth, right? She says nothing. She just sits back down.
Panics, bro.
Yep, she panicked. And so they can look at this stuff and go, oh, she's guilty. Like, she's feeling. And so like one of the things that I remember him saying to her is he's like, it's not good to have secrets, is it? And it's like saying things like that, like triggering the anxiety in someone. That's why it's so controversial, because like, what are the chances that, you know, you're saying this to somebody who isn't involved at all, and because of their anxiety they're about to blurt out something like this, you know, like what if they are mentally unfit for interrogation because they've been stunted in their developmental growth or something, and so they don't understand what's going on and they, you know, confess. Like false confessions happen. So I think that's why in a lot of these cases now they don't do this portion of it until they have enough evidence to book them anyways. I think they use it more as a tactic to get the full truth of everything, because they can only get bits and pieces from things like phone records and text messages and everything like that. But
that's fair.
It's all very, very interesting, and I love true crime.
Yeah, I love when we get to do true crime breakdowns. I love it so much.
Me too. I'll have to find that case so we can do it next time. I think it would be interesting.
Yes.
I'll tell you more about it afterwards. We can decide.
You know what you could also be telling us a little bit more about?
A couple birthdays coming up.
Yeah. But you know what also is tied to birthdays?
The stars?
Yep, and you know what we're bringing back next week? We got our astrology corner coming up, and you know what next month is? Geminis. Woo-hoo! So we're gonna be enjoying the lovely astrology corner. It's one of my favorite things of the month.
Get to talk about the twins.
Yes, we do. I'm so excited. I love doing the research for it. That's probably my favorite part.
I know, it's actually very exciting.
It is very much.
So
and what's also really exciting is doing our outro. So remember, Cubbies,
keep it real, but keep it curious.
Goodbye.